We are interviewing a special person that's going to be talking about many issues that we're all struggling from at this time. I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm looking forward to learning. I know you guys will enjoy this and learn from this too. This is Michelle Willette. She started Balance Your Path, and she's going to be talking about also her book, The 5 Steps to Wellness. Michelle, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. I'm excited for this and everything else in the kitchen sink.
It's great to be here, Rob. Thanks so much for having me.
So, Michelle, can you tell the viewers a little bit about you and Balance Your Path, how it got started?
Well, Balance Your Path got started right around the time that COVID hit. It was the opportunity where we were all stuck in the house, couldn't go out, to really think about my career path. So I chose to walk away from a 30-year career in executive management and start my own company, and that's Balance Your Path. And it is all about mindfulness teaching. I am a thought transformationalist. That's kind of my funnel of focus. And it really is to help people change the way they think so that they can deal with the fear and the anxiety and the things that are going on in the world around them today and every day. So.
Can you talk about what mindfulness is, Michelle?
In the simplest form, Rob, it's a state of mind. It is where you are able to stop in the moment and be completely present with everything that's going on around you. And you are able to really consider the thoughts that are in your mind and weigh them against actions and things that you may or may not have to do, make better decisions. It's very much about being in the moment at any given time.
How do we get rid of those toxic thoughts?
That is an excellent question, Rob, and it is something that we deal with on a daily basis with our clients. It is all about looking at the root cause of what's really going on behind all of this. And at the end of the day, it's fear and hopelessness, because we're secluded, because we've got this pandemic thing going on. Our life as we know it has completely changed. And so we have all of this fear. What do we do with fear? We have to confront it, and we have to allow ourselves to understand where it's coming from. Is there value in what information we're getting? And if there is, how do we deal with it? If there isn't, we have to let it go. And I've got a lot of practices that help people just let things go that are out of their control. If we can't control it, why would we want it sitting on our shoulders, right? And a lot of the COVID thing is out of our control. A lot of what's happening in the world today is completely out of our control. And so there's just little exercises that we can do to help you swipe past those thoughts and get them out of your thought process. If you do have to deal with it, mindfulness can help you to determine the best course of action so that the consequences from your words, your actions benefit you and whoever else that might be in the situation with you.
Michelle, is the best thing to if you're dealing with people, whether they work with you, whether they're your friends or your family, to kind of turn them off and their negative thoughts toward you or their negative thoughts in general, and turn those people off, turn off the news, get rid of all this bad stuff. And you think that that would fully take away a lot of the negativity in your life?
I don't think it fully takes away, but I think it definitely helps. One of the issues that we are fighting with long before COVID hit was this engorgement of technology into our world. In the late 70s, we had an attention span of about 34 minutes, the human. Today, we have an attention span of less than 8 seconds, which is less than a goldfish, right? Why? Well, because technology hit in those timeframes. Right. And that has been such a huge piece of our inability to stop and process our thoughts and think mindfully and process fear and anxiety and all of those things because we don't have time. We forgot how to think. We don't think anymore. We just do. We push a button and things just roll. So turning off the news, turning down the technology, shutting the tablet off, the cell phone off, don't take it to bed with you. These are all tips and tricks and life hacks that I share with my clients because the less information we're getting into our brains, the easier it is to deal with what's already there.
So I remember, I'm 32. I remember back when I got my first cell phone that was in 8th grade. And it was one of the flip phones. I never actually got a real smartphone until 2012. I was very late to the party compared to other people as far as that goes. And maybe I'm grateful for that because I didn't have all that, attention span issues until later on in life. But my question is with all these attention span issues, did they just come because of, social media, the technology whiz of, starting from flip phones all the way now to iPhones and Samsung Galaxies, which you can do all sorts of things with the phone and with the apps? Is that how this attention span issue started, or was it before that?
No, that's absolutely where it started. If you think about it, and you may be a little young, Rob, decidedly younger than I am. You are in the millennial time frame, right? The Gen Yers, I believe is your generation. When I was young, there wasn't any of this technology. We learned how to have conversations, to socially interact, to learn things. We read books. We had to open an encyclopedia if we wanted information about something. We had to go home and pick up the phone if we wanted to make a call. It wasn't just readily available. So mindfulness was part of the natural state of being then. Technology comes in and it makes everything so readily available. We stopped looking at books. We stopped having conversations. We stopped sitting down with our grandparents and asking them questions and spending time learning something from them. All of those kinds of things seem to stop. And unfortunately, like anything in evolution, our brains have not evolved far enough to accept the level of information that came on so quickly. And unfortunately, your generation, Rob, is the one that is they were the first on the scene for this. They were the ones that were born into technology. My generation, which is the Gen Xers right before you, we remember a time when we didn't have it. And so we brought that into our historical being where we had both, right? Yeah. You guys don't. And the brain just hasn't evolved quick enough. We will over time as a human species evolve. We always do, to adapt to our climate and our environment. And in the future generations, they will be able to handle the onslaught of information that's coming at them so quickly. But right now we're dealing with the two generations that have no clue how to deal with it and are suffering the greatest for it. We're seeing higher suicide rates. We're seeing depression, anxiety, social interactions that just are not happening, the inability to be social, and it's hurting them at home and at work and at school and in all areas. And we need to do something about it.
Yeah, even when I was in college back in 2011, 2012, you would see a girl passing you and you'd look up, or you'd be just walking in general and be looking straight, and the girl would see you and they'd automatically put their head down as they come closer to you. And then, because they didn't want that social interaction, either they didn't want it or they didn't know how to handle it, like you were saying.
Yes.
And then once they got past me, the other person, they would put their head up and then, keep walking. But they'd constantly be looking. So I think it's really a problem with these younger kids because they're always looking at their phones. They depend on Google. They depend on, the phone in general to know everything, to do everything. That's what they believe in, is what happens on the phone. And like you said, there's no talk to the parents, there's no talk to the grandparents. And I think it's going to be a big problem for them going into the workspace because they're not going to know how to handle relationships with clients, with, co-workers. I don't know how a lot of these people are going to handle it. Now, it's not going to be everybody, but it's going to be sorry, I got tongue-tied. It's going to be quite a bit of these, younger people growing up where they are really going to struggle with relationships inside and outside the workplace, for that matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we are already seeing it where they're sitting at home and they're gaming, and their social interactions, the friends that they have, are all online. They don't go out to see friends anymore. And the more that happens, the more they become secluded and in their own comfort zone to the point where it's creating social fears to even leave their space. And the more we see of that, the more, and these kids just didn't have the skill set. They didn't learn to sit and talk. I remember going and visiting my friends and hanging out on a Friday night at the roller skating rink when I was a kid, and there was no technology, and I saw all my friends on a daily basis, and it makes a huge difference, but we didn't notice that. Those of us in the older generations, as we're bringing up our kids, when my little kids were sitting at home playing on their phones and stuff, I didn't even stop to think about, is that detrimental for them? No, it's something new and they're fun and they're enjoying it. I didn't know until they were teenagers that it was actually harming them, and that I now had to really step in as a parent and say, wait a minute, we're going to go outside. Instead of talking to your friends online, why don't you invite them over and really start building those social skills that they had not developed?
Yeah, it's going to be a big problem in our country.
It is.
The Chinese, and I hate to talk about the Chinese, but because I probably will get crucified on here. But regardless, the Chinese, the kids go to school longer. Seems like their students do extremely better inside the classroom, and they end up getting really good jobs. Some of them come over here and get real good jobs. And besides the point, they shut the social media down at a certain time. That was a big thing in the news lately. I don't know if I really approve of that, because that sounds like really government overreach, and that really scares me. But in a way, maybe it's good because it makes sure the kids go to bed at a certain time, and they're not checking on their phones and looking what Susie's doing or what Jimmy's doing and all this other nonsense, where some of these kids, they're like 10, 11, 12 years old. They're up till like 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning doing BS. It's a
Right.
joke.
It is absolutely, and I agree with you. Should it be something that the government owns? Probably not.
Right.
But it's definitely something that the parents should own.
Right.
If we're teaching our kids how to be mindful, getting them off of social media and getting them away from technology at a decent hour in the evening and allowing them to read a book or to do a puzzle or to have a conversation, you're still teaching them valuable life skills that they're not getting probably anywhere else in the world in which they live in today.
It's terrible. It's really sad. And I think it's really hurting our country in general. And
I agree.
it's gonna get worse. Again, for people that are listening, this is Michelle Willette, Balance Your Path. Again, we're going to be talking about the book in a minute, 5 Steps to Wellness. As we keep going into this, I know you talked about with some of your clients, you do develop strategies. What are the strategies that you use and you tell your clients to use to correct these issues?
Well, because we're so familiar with swiping the screen on our cell phone, right? One of the strategies that I use is called the swipe activity, and it is about sitting in your thoughts. There's a misconception out there that you will hear from a lot of spiritual leaders, a lot of mindfulness teachers, a lot of people in that kind of, coaching scenarios that says, clear your mind. That's impossible. I'm so sorry. Don't even attempt it because you'd be wasting your time. It is impossible to clear our minds. What we need to do is understand what's happening in our minds and process it correctly. So the swipe effect is really just sitting and allowing your thoughts to go wherever they're going to go. Especially, this really works with people with anxiety, and stopping and letting one thought come into mind and literally evaluating it. Do I have control over it? Yes or no? If I don't, swipe left, get rid of it. It's like on a dating site. We're going to move that one on by and we're going to let the next one come in. If I am in control over it, does it have value in my life? Is there something that I need to act on? If there's not anything I need to act on, again, we swipe it away. If there is, then we think a little bit further and we think, okay, what are my options to act on it? We think about what the 2 or 3 options might be, and we think about the consequences of each one of those actions. And then we make a choice on how we're going to act on it from a mindful place. Then we move on to the next thought. And if we do that, if we learn how to process thoughts as they come into our brain, the detrimental ones, the negative ones, the ones that have zero value to our well-being, are much easier to just let come in one ear and out the other, and let them go, where our focus then goes into those that do have value for us. And that really is important, because a lot of the information we're getting, especially through our devices, right? TikTok is a perfect example. You open your TikTok, right? And you're swiping through, and even though you're swiping, you're still seeing the content. Even if you're not stopping on it for very long or liking it or following or whatever, it's still hitting your mind. And that can pop in later, whether you wanted it or not, it's there. Does it have value? No, then get rid of it. Stop thinking about it. Don't let it create worry or fear. So it's kind of that concept.
Michelle, can you speak about what made you want to write this book, 5 Steps to Wellness?
Life experience. So I was spent the better part of a decade as a small child homeless on the streets of Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
And that, of course, did not set me up for success. And I went through my early formative years dealing with that. And then, of course, my teenage, early 20s, all of those things with this heavy trauma, right? And I had to figure out how to get out of it. And back then there wasn't a lot of help. Nobody really understood it. So I had to figure it out on my own. And luckily my sister, were the middles out of four, had the same kind of thought process. And so the two of us really just started helping each other, try to figure out how to get away from that and be more successful in our lives. And we spent the better part of 20 years learning how to do it and made our lives better because of it. And then decided that this was information that we really needed to start sharing. And so we started doing coaching and things, definitely working with the family and friends of friends, and really didn't have it on a big level, but we were doing it. Then COVID hit, and we're like, this now is a global concern, and we need to get this information out to as many people as we can. So we sat down, we wrote the books, we started the website, we started the company, and really made it official so that we could just hit a broader range of people and help more people, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, is helping somebody else.
I agree 100%. And you're doing amazing work.
Thank you.
And as we go to the end of the interview, I have just a few questions left. So, we talk about this technology issue. Obviously, it's not going to go away. So for people in my generation and in your generation too, what can we do to really kind of put a clamp on this? Because this is affecting people's sleep at night with the blue light. And, people just get addicted to these social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I hear people, and we've interviewed people on here that now with the phone, it's so easy to access pornography. They get addicted to that because all these things are easy. It's just a click of I was going to say click of the mouse, but it's not a click of the mouse anymore.
Not
It's
anymore.
a click on, it's a tap on the phone, we'll say,
There you go.
by
There you
your
go.
finger. And you can get to anything you want,
Yes.
anything. You can get to really good stuff to really sick, messed up, perverted stuff. So how do we, as far as my generation and yours, stay sane and also bring back that mindfulness?
Well, I'll tell you. So you're right. We can't get rid of technology. In fact, we depend on it so much at this point that really, do we want to get rid of it? I mean, it does help our lives. If we're using it correctly, it is you and I are together. You're in Rhode Island. I'm in Utah or Florida. I'm not sure where. We're together right now because of technology, right? And it makes us be able to reach our audiences on a much broader level. So it's good. But we are taking in a lot of bad information. I would urge anyone watching this to be very mindful about how they use their technology. Don't be afraid to shut it down. Give yourself that opportunity in the evenings to not be staring at a phone and find something a little bit more organic to do with the last hour or two of your evening, and to spend time with your loved ones and have conversations, or just relax and read a book, something that is in the actual reality. We need to get back to in reality. We're living outside of it. Another, quick tip would be, when you're scrolling through information, when you're seeking something, when you pass by something that is negative, that is not something that you want, don't linger. Let it go by quickly, and do not entertain thoughts about it going forward. Don't let it sit on you and create a worry about something that may or may not even be factual. Don't spend any time on it. Don't give it any weight.
And lastly, with the last two questions, Michelle, what do you hope people learn from the book?
I am hoping that they understand that in order to create anything long-term in their lives that is good for them, that they have to have a foundation to do that. Whether it is an eating, way of eating, or an exercise plan, or the way they conduct their business on a daily basis, doesn't matter what it is. If you want to see long-term results in anything that you do, you have to have a foundation. That's what the book does. It creates a foundation of wellness and mindfulness that you can then build upon to become successful in all areas of your life, long-term.
Right. I agree 100%. So how can people get in contact with you, whether they want coaching, whether they want to get the book, whether they just want to maybe get a consultation in general?
Absolutely. And I am available for all of the above. I do a lot of in-person trainings and personal coaching, and leadership thought training is a big one right now, but I can be found on my website, balanceyourpath.com. And everything is there. There's a contact page, there's links to the books, there's a lot of free training, things like this, conversations. This will be there. They can go in and look at different interviews that I've done. There's a blog called The Balancing Act, and we put some really fun, great information on there. A lot of free content for people looking for tips and tricks to just be able to get through their day-to-day. So everything's on the website. They can come find me and find everything else.
Michelle Willette, again, balanceyourpath.com. And you're on social media and Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff too, or?
I am on it all, Rob, and links to every single one of my social platforms are also on the website.
All right, great. Again, balanceyourpath.com, Michelle Willette. Thanks so much for your time, Michelle. Let's definitely do this again. It was great.
I loved it. Thanks so much again for having me, Rob.